Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy C has some motivated minds. Before I get started, I want y'all to check this out real quick.
Tonight, the family of Breonna Greer reacting to this newly released police body camera footage, showing the events leading up to her death.
My heart was broken. And see the picture I'm holding now? We don't have no more.
As her mother, what was going through your mind?
You want to know?
The 28-year-old Georgia resident died July 21st, just days after falling out of a moving police car. The mother of twins, a diagnosed schizophrenic, had been arrested during what her family says was a mental health emergency.
Get out of me!
In the video, you see the officers struggling to get Greer into the police car. She's handcuffed in front of her body.
No!
Another appears to take out his taser.
You can tase me. I don't care! I don't care!
Then puts it back into its holster and quickly lifts her into the car. You see and hear the rear door on the driver's side shut. Minutes later, the officer stops the car. You see Greer lying face down on the side of the road, having fallen out of the passenger side of the patrol car. The officer checks for a response. Investigators say they've concluded the rear passenger side door was opened by one of the officers, but then never closed, and that Greer was not wearing a seatbelt when she fell out of the car. The officer propping Greer's head up and calling for an ambulance. She died 6 days later in a hospital after slipping into a coma.
I've been trying to figure out for about the past month how I wanted to do a video about this, because this case speaks directly to the issue of mental health in the Black community. And then when you get the police involved, it could possibly morph into something totally different. I don't really want to focus on the police in this particular video because I want to keep the attention on her and the mental health aspect of this. But let me give y'all a little background about this case. So Breonna Greer is a young lady that was from Hancock County, Georgia, and that's the Sparta area. She's a diagnosed schizophrenic, and her parents had called the police to get some help because she was having a mental health crisis. As you can see in the video, once the police arrived, one thing led to another, and here we are. So now, let me just cut over here real quick. I'm gonna tell y'all, man, this Breonna Greer case is really bothering me. And it just seems like nobody's really talking about it. So, I'm gonna just address it. And I'll probably do this in a couple different parts because there's a lot of different elements to this case. Yep, the mental health issue. You've got the issue of the police being called, their actions, and, I mean, it's so much stuff to this. One of the reports that I saw said that they had called the police several times before, but nothing like this had ever happened. What's really troubling to me is that it appears that the media, as well as the family, is focusing on what happened to her and the actions of the police versus this young lady suffered from a mental illness and she couldn't get the help that she needed. So what I want to do is I want to focus on this young lady and her having a mental health crisis and the lack of attention that blacks give to, or the lack of attention that is given to blacks who have mental health issues. It's reported that this young lady suffered from schizophrenia. Well, first of all, what's schizophrenia? A few of the symptoms of schizophrenia are delusions, hallucinations, and disorganized speech, thinking, and behavior. Now, schizophrenia does not mean that a person has split personality or multiple personalities. In fact, a person suffering from schizophrenia isn't more violent or more dangerous than people living in the general population. I was doing some research and I read something that said that adult blacks are more likely to have feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and worthlessness than adult whites. Now, I don't know if that's true, but one thing that I do know is that if we do feel that way, we as blacks are less likely to talk about it. And I think that's part of the problem, that we may have these feelings, or we may be suffering, or we may have a family member that may be suffering from some type of mental disorder, right? And we really don't talk about it. And oftentimes we don't go and try to seek help. What we often do is we try to pray it away.
Some of you don't believe it yet, but God's gonna come through your life. He's gonna sweep through your life.
You know, we take it to the church, let the pastor them lay hands on them, and try to pray the mental illness away.
Oh, yes, he is. Hallelujah. Oh, glory.
And I want to show y'all something else. This is just information that I found from some of the research that I was doing. So check this out. Okay, now y'all see that? Y'all see? It talked about major depressive episodes, right? And yeah, of course, despite the rates being less than the overall U.S. population, it should be, because we only make up 12 to 14% of the population. However, there was an increase. And here's the crazy part about it. Depression. People, for some reason, we do not talk about not only mental issues in the black community, we will not talk about depression. Why? There's this stigma that we have, you know, I'm speaking as a whole in the black community, you know, that, you know, I guess is related to our belief system, you know, that's psychological openness in seeking help. For some reason, I guess, is weakness. Most of us was taught, we just deal with it. Or like I said, you know, we go to church and we just pray about it, you know, instead of seeking professional help. Now, you know, we can get into why we don't, you know, aside from the stigma that comes along with it. But then we have to get into the lack of resources. Some people don't have the medical insurance because they can't afford it. And I know, again, that there's been a push, you know, to get the resources down into the communities. But then there is also the mistrust of the medical industry because of stuff like this. Y'all know that Tuskegee syphilis experiment, or this. Now, if you haven't read this book called Medical Apartheid, I suggest you read it. And it talks about all the stuff that the medical industry has done to blacks over the years. You know, it talks about eugenics and all kinds of stuff, the sterilization of black women. Yeah, so that's another reason why, you know, a lot of blacks don't seek help, because we don't trust these doctors. Let me change gears for a second and go back to something. I find that people call the police on family members who are having a mental health crisis for one or two reasons. One, they're trying to get help. And two, they don't want to deal with them. So they call the police to come and get them and take them away. Here in Florida, they shut down a lot of the state facilities. So people who often are having mental health crisis, y'all know where they end up? In jail. Now I want y'all to hold that thought real quick, because I want to show y'all something. I saw this lady right here the other day when I was driving. She was sitting at the bus stop.
The one thing that I noticed is that she was talking to herself, and you can just tell that something about her wasn't right. And I'm pretty familiar with her, and I know that this lady does have some mental issues. But let me tell y'all what could happen. This lady could go into one of the stores around there, and she could be, having an episode, being a mental health crisis. And the people in those stores may not know it, and they call the police. The police will come, and instead of getting her some type of help, they'll end up taking her to jail. They'll trespass her, or if she was stealing or whatever, they'll charge her with some type of theft. But a lot of times, what we see is people who are having a mental health crisis, they end up getting trespassed from a location, and they end up taking them to jail. Now, while they're there, a lot of times they're not there for very long, but a lot of times while they're locked up, they end up seeing, the psych doctor and getting their meds and getting their medications and get right. But, after a little while, after a couple of days, a week, 2 or 3 weeks, they're right back on the streets. And instead of getting these people help, what our criminal justice system does is put them right back on the streets. And then it also depends on the level of the crime. Knowing that these people have mental issues, they send them off to prison, just depending on what the crime is. Now, this lady that I know of, she really doesn't have anybody. So she's by herself, and I could be wrong, but every time I've seen her, and just from kind of dealing with her, I don't think she has any family. But then let's go over to Brianna Greer. She had a family, and I know that they call the police, or it's said that they called the police to try and get her some help. But my question is, what happened to getting her help prior to this? And I'm not saying they didn't, because I don't really know the whole situation, right? Because they really not really speaking on it. But what they are speaking on is the actions of the police, right? But my concern is, why didn't anybody get her some serious help? And maybe they did, and maybe she wasn't on medication. I don't know. But I'm just led to believe that somewhere along the line, somebody failed Brianna Greer. So all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, we need to start having open and honest conversations about mental health in our community. We need to start opening up and talking about depression, because there are people out there that are hurting, and the only thing they want is someone to talk to. We got to get rid of that stigma that's in the Black community, that, we don't go and seek professional help when it comes down to mental health issues. Hey, this your boy C. Hess with Motivated Minds. I just want y'all to think about it.